Welcome back to Sleepy Tech Stories, where technology whispers its secrets in the gentle darkness. I'm here to guide you through another peaceful journey into the hidden corners of our digital world. Tonight, we drift into a story that lives in the quiet glow of screens around the world. A story that began not in the bright arcades of the 1980s, not in the living rooms where families gathered around television sets, but in the sterile corridors of military research facilities during the height of the Cold War. In the quiet corners of your home, your devices whisper stories of innovation and wonder. Tonight, let's take a gentle journey through the world of technology, a world that hums softly beneath our fingertips, waiting to be discovered. So, settle in, breathe deeply, and let the story unfold. Right now, as you listen to these words, billions of people around the world are holding small rectangles of glass and silicon, their thumbs dancing across touchscreens, guiding colorful characters through digital worlds. Children are learning problem solving through puzzle games. Adults are unwinding with gentle farming simulations. Families are connecting across continents through shared virtual adventures. But here's what most people don't know. The games that now bring joy and relaxation to billions began as tools of war. The same algorithms that help you match colorful candies were once designed to track enemy aircraft. The graphics that paint beautiful fantasy worlds evolved from radar displays meant to detect incoming missiles. This is the gentle, hidden story of how humanity's most serious technology became our most playful art form. From the blinking lights of early computers to the quantum processors that power today's virtual worlds, from military training simulations to the casual games that help us drift peacefully to sleep. So close your eyes, breathe slowly, and let me tell you how pixels learned to play, how algorithms discovered joy, and how the tools of conflict became instruments of connection and wonder. This is the secret history of video games. Let's begin our journey in 1958 in the quiet halls of Brookhaven National Laboratory on Long Island. The Cold War is at its peak, and scientists are working on projects that could determine the fate of nations. But in one small laboratory, a physicist named William Higginbotham is thinking about something entirely different. It's October, and the lab is preparing for its annual public exhibition. Families will come to see the wonders of atomic research. But Higginbotham knows that most of the displays are just tours of glass cases, static, boring, unable to capture the imagination of visitors, especially the children. As he sits reading the manual for the lab's Donner Model 30 analog computer, something catches his attention. This machine, designed to calculate ballistic trajectories for missiles, could also compute the path of a simple bouncing ball. In that quiet moment, an idea begins to form. What if, instead of showing people the mathematics of destruction, he could show them the mathematics of play? Working with technician Robert Dvorak, Higginbotham spends 3 peaceful weeks building something the world has never seen before. They connect the analog computer to a small oscilloscope, a device normally used to visualize electrical signals. On its 5-inch screen, they create a simple side-view tennis court, a horizontal line for the ground, a vertical line for the net, 2 aluminum controllers, each with a knob to adjust the angle and a button to hit the ball. The computer calculates gravity, wind resistance, the bounce of the ball. It's primitive by today's standards, but in 1958, it's pure magic. They call it tennis for 2. When the exhibition opens, something wonderful happens. while adults politely examine the static displays of nuclear research. Children and teenagers crowd around this small screen, waiting in line for their turn to play. They laugh, they compete, they discover the joy of interactive entertainment. Higginbotham watches with quiet satisfaction. He has no idea that he has just planted the first seed of what will become a trillion-dollar industry. To him, it's simply a successful demonstration of scientific principles. After 2 years, the equipment is dismantled and forgotten. But the idea begins to spread. Meanwhile, in the depths of the Cold War, military planners are grappling with a terrifying new reality. Soviet bombers could cross the Arctic in hours, carrying nuclear weapons toward American cities. Traditional air defense, men with binoculars and plotting boards, simply isn't fast enough for the jet age. The solution is SAGE, the semi-automatic ground environment. Imagine a network of massive computers, each one filling an entire building, connected by telephone lines across the continent. Radar stations feed data to these electronic brains, which track every aircraft in North American airspace Operators sit before glowing screens, watching dots of light that represent aircraft. They use light guns, primitive pointing devices, to select targets and direct interceptor jets. It's like a video game, but the stakes are the survival of civilization. SAGE costs $8 billion and employs thousands of people. It's one of the largest computer projects in human history, and it's essentially a real-time simulation, a game where the players are trying to prevent nuclear war. The technologies developed for SAGE, real-time graphics, interactive displays, networked computers, will eventually find their way into every arcade and living room. But for now, they exist only in the sterile bunkers of military command centers. In 1962, at MIT, a group of young computer enthusiasts discovers the university's new PDP-1 minicomputer. These are the early hackers, not criminals, but curious minds who love to explore the possibilities of these electronic brains. Steve Russell, inspired by the space opera novels of E. Doc Smith, decides to create something purely for fun. Working late into the night in the glow of the computer's console lights, he programs Spacewar, 2 spaceships dueling around a gravitational star. The game spreads to every PDP-1 computer in the country. Scientists and students stay up all night, battling each other in digital space. It's the first computer game designed purely for entertainment. And it reveals something profound. Given the chance, humans will always find ways to play. But these early games exist only in the rarefied world of university research labs and military installations. The computers cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. The idea that ordinary people might someday have such machines in their homes seems like pure fantasy. Yet the seeds are planted. In quiet laboratories and military bunkers, the fundamental technologies of interactive entertainment are taking shape. Graphics, processors, learn to paint pictures with light. Input devices evolve to capture human intention. Programmers discover the algorithms that will someday power virtual worlds. The military origins of gaming remind us that our most playful technologies often emerge from our most serious endeavors. The same human ingenuity that creates weapons also creates wonder. The same mathematical precision that guides missiles also guides the gentle bounce of a digital ball. As we drift deeper into this story, Remember that every game you've ever played carries within it the DNA of these early experiments. The joy you feel when solving a puzzle, the satisfaction of mastering a challenge, the connection you make with other players. All of this began in the quiet moments when scientists and engineers chose to explore not just what computers could calculate, but what they could create. Let's drift forward to 1966, to a quiet suburban home where television engineer Ralph Baer is having a moment of inspiration that will change the world. Baer works for Sanders Associates, a defense contractor. But tonight, he's thinking about something entirely different. He's staring at his television set, that glowing rectangle that brings news and entertainment into millions of homes. And he's wondering, what if it could do more than just receive broadcasts? What if it could respond, interact, play? The idea seems almost absurd. Television is a one-way medium. You watch it, it doesn't watch you back. But Baer has spent years working with electronic circuits, and he knows that the cathode ray tube that paints pictures on the screen could just as easily paint interactive graphics. In his basement workshop, surrounded by the gentle hum of electronic equipment, Baer begins to experiment. He builds simple circuits that can generate dots and lines on a television screen. 2 dots that can be controlled by players. A line that acts as a net or boundary. The mathematics are simple, but the implications are profound. He calls his creation the brown box, not because of any grand marketing vision, but simply because he covers the aluminum prototype with brown wood grain contact paper to make it look more appealing to potential investors. The brown box can play 12 different games. Tennis, where 2 players control paddles to hit a square ball back and forth. Hockey, volleyball, target shooting. Each game is selected by flipping switches on the front panel, like tuning to different television channels. But this isn't just a technical achievement. It's a social revolution waiting to happen. For the first time, the television becomes a shared, interactive experience. Families can play together. Children can compete with their parents. The passive medium of television transforms into an active playground. Baer demonstrates his invention to television manufacturers, but most dismiss it as a novelty. Who would want to play games on their television when they could watch professional entertainment instead? The concept seems too strange, too different from what people expect from their living room screens. Finally, in 1972, Magnavox agrees to license Baer's technology. They release it as the Magnavox Odyssey, the world's first home video game console. It's primitive by today's standards. No sound, no color, no complex graphics. Players must place plastic overlays on their television screens to create backgrounds and keep score with pencil and paper. But something magical happens when families bring the Odyssey home. Children who have never shown interest in television suddenly become engaged, active participants. Parents find themselves playing alongside their kids, rediscovering the joy of play. The television, once a solitary or passive group experience, becomes a catalyst for interaction and laughter. The Odyssey sells modestly, about 330,000 units over its lifetime, but its impact ripples far beyond those sales numbers. It proves that people want to interact with their screens, that the boundary between viewer and participant can be dissolved. Meanwhile, in California, a young entrepreneur named Nolan Bushnell is watching these developments with keen interest. Bushnell has played Spassoir on university computers, and he understands the addictive appeal of interactive entertainment. But he also understands something that the academic world has missed: the power of quarters. In 1972, Bushnell founds Atari, named after a term from the ancient game of Go that means you are about to be captured. His first product, Computer Space, is an arcade version of Spacewar, but it's too complex for casual players. Bar patrons, slightly intoxicated and looking for simple fun, find the controls confusing and the gameplay intimidating. Bushnell learns a crucial lesson: successful games must be easy to understand but difficult to master. They must invite players in with simplicity, then keep them engaged with gradually increasing challenge. His next game embodies this philosophy perfectly. Pong, inspired by the tennis game on Baer's Odyssey, reduces interactive entertainment to its absolute essence. 2 paddles, 1 ball, simple physics. A child can understand it in seconds, but mastering the subtle angles and timing can take hours. The first Pong machine is installed at Andy Cap's Tavern in Sunnyvale. Within days, the machine breaks down, not from mechanical failure, but because it's so popular that the coin box overflows with quarters. Players line up to take their turn at this simple but mesmerizing game. Pong becomes a phenomenon. Arcade operators across the country clamor for machines. Competitors rush to create their own versions. The age of commercial video gaming has begun. Built on the foundation of a game so simple that its entire instruction manual reads, "Avoid missing ball for high score." But Bushnell has an even grander vision. If people will pay quarters to play games in arcades, why wouldn't they pay dollars to play games at home? In 1975, Atari releases Home Pong, bringing the arcade experience into living rooms across America. Television sets are becoming more sophisticated and affordable. Families are looking for new forms of entertainment. The counterculture movement has made people more open to alternative forms of media and interaction. Home Pong sells 150,000 units in its first year, proving that home gaming isn't just a novelty, it's a viable market. Other companies take notice. Coleco, Magnavox, and dozens of smaller manufacturers rush to create their own home gaming systems. By 1977, the market is flooded with Pong clones and variations. Every department store has a wall of gaming consoles, each promising slightly different features or game variations. But the market becomes oversaturated. Consumers, confused by too many similar options, begin to lose interest. The first video game crash seems imminent. Many industry observers predict that home gaming is just a fad, destined to fade like hula hoops or pet rocks. The technology seems to have reached its limits. How many ways can you bounce a square ball between 2 rectangular paddles? But in Japan, a playing card company called Nintendo is quietly watching these developments. They see not the limitations of current technology, but the unlimited potential of interactive entertainment. Nintendo begins to experiment with arcade games, creating colorful, character-driven experiences that go far beyond the abstract geometry of Pong. They develop a philosophy that will revolutionize gaming. Technology should serve creativity, not constrain it. As we drift toward the 1980s, the stage is set for gaming's next evolution. The simple joy of Pong has proven that people hunger for interactive entertainment. All that's needed is the vision to combine technology with artistry, to transform electronic circuits into emotional experiences. The quiet revolution that began in Ralph Baer's basement workshop is about to explode into a cultural phenomenon that will touch every corner of human society. The age of the video game character is about to begin. As we drift into the early 1980s, something magical is happening in the dimly lit corners of arcades around the world. The simple geometric shapes of early games are giving way to something more profound. Characters with personality, stories that capture the imagination, worlds that feel alive with possibility. Picture a small arcade in 1980 filled with the gentle electronic melodies of dozens of games. The air hums with the sound of quarters dropping into slots, the satisfying clicks of joysticks and buttons, the occasional cheer of victory or groan of defeat. This is where the next chapter of our story unfolds. In Japan, a young artist named Toru Iwatani is working late at Namco, sketching ideas for a new kind of game. He's tired of the violent themes that dominate arcades. Spaceships shooting aliens, tanks destroying enemies. He wants to create something different, something that might appeal to everyone, including the women and families who rarely venture into these male-dominated spaces. Inspiration strikes in the most ordinary moment. Sitting in a restaurant, Iwatani looks down at a pizza with a slice removed and sees a simple, friendly face, a circle with a mouth. In that quiet moment, Pac-Man is born. But Pac-Man is more than just a character design. It's a complete reimagining of what a video game can be. Instead of destruction, the goal is consumption, eating dots, growing stronger, surviving. Instead of abstract space battles, the action takes place in a colorful maze that feels almost like a neighborhood, complete with its own geography and hiding places. The ghosts that chase Pac-Man aren't just obstacles, they're characters with distinct personalities. Blinky is aggressive and direct. Pinky tries to ambush. Inky is unpredictable. Clyde seems almost lazy. Each has its own color, its own behavior pattern, its own role in the game's gentle drama. When Pac-Man arrives in American arcades in 1980, something unprecedented happens. For the first time, a video game character becomes a cultural icon. Children who have never set foot in an arcade know Pac-Man's distinctive Waka Waka sound. The character appears on lunchboxes, t-shirts, even a hit song that climbs the Billboard charts. More importantly, Pac-Man succeeds in Iwatani's original goal. It brings new audiences to gaming. Women who had largely ignored the violent space shooters find themselves drawn to this colorful, non-threatening character. Families play together, parents teaching children the optimal paths through the maze. The success of Pac-Man proves that video games can be more than just tests of reflexes or hand-eye coordination. They can be vehicles for personality, for storytelling, for emotional connection. The industry takes notice, and a new era begins. Meanwhile, in a small apartment in Kyoto, a young artist named Shigeru Miyamoto is sketching ideas for Nintendo's first arcade game. Miyamoto has studied industrial design, but his true passion is storytelling. He approaches game design not as a technical challenge, but as a narrative opportunity. His first creation, Donkey Kong, tells a simple but compelling story. A carpenter named Mario must rescue his girlfriend Pauline from a giant ape who has carried her to the top of a construction site. It's King Kong meets Romeo and Juliet, played out on a series of platforms and ladders. But Miyamoto's genius lies in the details. Mario doesn't just jump over obstacles. He has weight, momentum, personality. When he falls too far, he tumbles realistically. When he grabs a hammer, his movement changes to reflect the tool's heft. Every animation, every sound effect, every visual detail serves the story. Donkey Kong becomes a massive hit, but more importantly, it establishes principles that will guide game design for decades. Characters should feel real, even in fantastic situations. Gameplay should emerge naturally from the story being told. Technology should serve imagination, not the other way around. As the 1980s progress, arcades become theaters of digital storytelling. Each new game tries to create more compelling characters, more engaging worlds, more emotionally satisfying experiences. Space Invaders had taught players to survive against overwhelming odds. Asteroids had shown them the beauty of physics and momentum. But games like Pac-Man and Donkey Kong teach something more profound. They show that digital worlds can have heart, personality, soul. The golden age of arcades reaches its peak around 1982. In America alone, people spend more money on video games than on movies and pop music combined. Arcades are no longer just entertainment venues. They're cultural gathering places where communities form around shared challenges and achievements. But success breeds excess. The market becomes flooded with hastily made games, cheap imitations, and poorly conceived concepts. Quality control disappears as companies rush to capitalize on the gaming boom. Consumers, faced with too many mediocre options, begin to lose faith in the medium. The great video game crash of 1983 nearly destroys the industry in North America. Stores can't give away gaming consoles. Arcade revenues plummet. Many observers declare that video games were just a fad, destined to join other forgotten entertainment trends. But in Japan, Nintendo is quietly preparing for gaming's resurrection. They understand that the crash wasn't caused by a lack of interest in games. It was caused by a lack of quality games. They develop a philosophy of careful curation, rigorous testing, and artistic excellence. When Nintendo releases the Famicom in Japan in 1983, and later the Nintendo Entertainment System in America in 1985, they don't just offer new technology, they offer a promise. Every game bearing the Nintendo seal of quality will meet certain standards of playability, creativity, and polish. More importantly, Nintendo understands that games are not just products, they're experiences. They invest heavily in character development, world building, and emotional storytelling. Mario evolves from a simple carpenter into a plumber, then into a hero, capable of traversing multiple worlds and dimensions. The Legend of Zelda, released in 1986, takes this philosophy even further. Miyamoto creates not just a game, but an entire world, Hyrule, complete with its own history, geography, and mythology. Players don't just control Link, the game's hero. They inhabit his world, explore its secrets, become part of its story. These games succeed because they understand something fundamental about human nature. We don't just want to play games. We want to live stories. We want to be heroes, explorers, problem solvers. We want to inhabit worlds where our actions matter, where our choices have consequences, where our victories feel earned. As the 1980s draw to a close, video games have evolved from simple electronic diversions into a new form of interactive art. They combine the visual appeal of movies, the narrative depth of novels, and the participatory engagement of sports. They offer something that no other medium can provide: the chance to be the protagonist of your own story. The characters born in this golden age, Mario, Link, Pac-Man, Donkey Kong become more than just game mascots. They become cultural ambassadors, introducing millions of people to the joy of interactive entertainment. They prove that pixels and polygons can carry emotional weight, that digital worlds can feel as real and meaningful as physical ones. As we prepare to enter the 1990s, the foundation has been laid for gaming's next great leap forward. The technology is advancing rapidly. The audience is growing and diversifying. The creative vision is expanding beyond anything the early pioneers could have imagined. The age of home consoles is about to give way to the age of personal computers, online connectivity, and three-dimensional worlds. But the lessons learned in those dimly lit arcades, that games must have heart, that characters must feel real, that stories must matter, will guide every step of the journey ahead. As we drift into the 1990s, a quiet revolution is taking place in computer laboratories and game development studios around the world. The flat, two-dimensional worlds that have defined gaming for decades are about to give way to something that seems almost magical: true three-dimensional space. In a small office in Texas, a young programmer named John Carmack is working late into the night, surrounded by the gentle glow of computer monitors and the soft hum of cooling fans. Carmack has a vision that seems almost impossible with the limited computing power of the early 1990s. He wants to create games that feel like walking through real three-dimensional spaces. The challenge is immense. Creating convincing 3D graphics requires massive computational power, far more than most home computers can provide. But Carmack has a gift for seeing elegant solutions to complex problems. He develops techniques that trick the eye into seeing depth and dimension, even when the underlying mathematics are relatively simple. His first breakthrough comes with Wolfenstein 3D in 1992. Players find themselves walking through Nazi bunkers, seeing the world from a first-person perspective that feels startlingly real. The walls have texture and depth. Enemies appear to move in three-dimensional space. For the first time, a video game feels less like controlling a character and more like being that character. But Carmack's true masterpiece comes a year later with Doom. This isn't just a technical achievement. It's a complete reimagining of what video games can be. The graphics are more sophisticated, the gameplay more intense, but most importantly, Doom introduces something revolutionary: networked multiplayer gaming. For the first time, players can connect their computers and play together in the same virtual space, even when they're physically separated by thousands of miles. Friends become allies or enemies in digital battlefields. The solitary experience of gaming transforms into a social activity that transcends geographic boundaries. The impact is immediate and profound. Office networks across the world slow to a crawl as employees engage in impromptu Doom matches during lunch breaks. Universities struggle with bandwidth as students spend entire nights battling each other through virtual corridors. Gaming is no longer just entertainment. It's becoming a new form of social interaction. Meanwhile, in Japan, Nintendo is approaching the challenge of 3D gaming from a completely different angle. While American developers focus on technical prowess and realistic graphics, Nintendo's Shigeru Miyamoto is thinking about something more fundamental. How do you navigate in three-dimensional space? The problem isn't just technical, it's conceptual. In two-dimensional games, players always know where they are and where they're going: left, right, up, down. the directions are clear and intuitive. But in 3D space, players can become lost, confused, disoriented. How do you create a three-dimensional world that feels natural and navigable? Miyamoto's solution comes in the form of Super Mario 64, released for the Nintendo 64 in 1996. This isn't just Mario in 3D. It's a complete reinvention of how characters move and how players interact with virtual spaces. Mario can run, jump, swim, climb, and fly through fully three-dimensional environments that feel alive and responsive. But the real innovation is the camera system. Players can adjust their viewpoint, looking around corners, peering over obstacles, getting the perfect angle to make a challenging jump. The camera becomes a character in its own right, a silent partner that helps players understand and navigate the game world. The impact on game design is revolutionary. Suddenly, developers aren't just creating levels, they're creating spaces. Architecture becomes as important as gameplay mechanics. The way light falls across a virtual landscape, the way sound echoes through digital corridors, the way objects cast shadows, all of these elements contribute to the player's sense of presence and immersion. As the 1990s progress, the power of home computers and gaming consoles increases exponentially. Graphics become more detailed, more realistic, more emotionally engaging. But with this increased power comes new challenges and opportunities. Game developers begin to explore themes and narratives that were impossible in the simpler days of arcade gaming. Role-playing games create vast, persistent worlds where players can spend hundreds of hours developing characters and exploring storylines. Strategy games simulate entire civilizations, allowing players to guide the development of societies across centuries or millennia. The rise of CD-ROM technology allows games to incorporate full-motion video, orchestral soundtracks, and voice acting. Games begin to feel less like interactive toys and more like interactive movies or novels. The boundary between entertainment media begins to blur. But perhaps the most significant development of this era is the emergence of online gaming communities. As internet connectivity becomes more widespread and reliable, games evolve from solitary or local multiplayer experiences into persistent online worlds where thousands of players can interact simultaneously. Massively multiplayer online games like Ultima Online and EverQuest create virtual societies with their own economies, politics, and social structures. Players form guilds, establish trade relationships, even get married in digital ceremonies. These aren't just games, they're alternate realities where people can explore different aspects of their personalities and form meaningful relationships with others around the world. The psychological and social implications are profound. For many players, their online personas become as important as their offline identities. Virtual achievements carry real emotional weight. Digital friendships develop into lasting real-world relationships. Gaming evolves from a hobby into a lifestyle, from entertainment into a form of social participation. As we approach the new millennium, video games have become one of the most significant cultural forces in the world. They influence art, music, literature, and film. They drive technological innovation in graphics, networking, and user interface designs. They create new forms of storytelling and new models of social interaction. The simple electronic tennis game that William Umetham created in 1958 has evolved into a medium capable of creating experiences that are simultaneously intimate and global, personal and social, entertaining and educational. Games have become a new language for human expression, a new canvas for creativity, a new space for community. But this is still just the beginning. As we stand on the threshold of the 21st century, new technologies are emerging that will once again transform gaming in ways we can barely imagine. Mobile devices will put gaming power in everyone's pocket. Virtual and augmented reality will dissolve the boundary between digital and physical worlds. Artificial intelligence will create game experiences that adapt and evolve in real. The story of video games is ultimately the story of human creativity and connection. It's about our endless desire to play, to explore, to compete, to collaborate, to tell stories, and to share experiences with others. From the military laboratories of the Cold War to the smartphones in our pockets, games have become one of the most powerful ways we connect with each other and make sense of our world. As we drift into the final chapter of our gentle journey through gaming history, let's travel to a moment that changed everything. January 9th, 2007, in a sleek auditorium in San Francisco, Steve Jobs takes the stage and holds up a device that seems almost magical. Today, he says, Apple is going to reinvent the phone. But what he's really doing is reinventing gaming, though few people realize it at the time. The iPhone isn't just a phone. It's a computer more powerful than the machines that created the first video games. And it fits in your pocket. More importantly, it has something that will transform gaming forever. A touchscreen that responds to the gentle pressure of your fingertips. For decades, games have been controlled by buttons, joysticks, keyboards, and mice. Players have needed to learn complex control schemes, memorize button combinations, develop precise hand-eye coordination. But the iPhone's touchscreen makes interaction intuitive, natural, almost effortless. A child can pick up an iPhone and immediately understand how to play. Touch the screen where you want to go. Swipe to move objects, pinch to zoom. The barrier between intention and action dissolves, making games accessible to people who never considered themselves gamers. When the App Store launches in July 2008, it creates something unprecedented in gaming history. A global distribution platform where anyone can publish games and anyone can discover them. Suddenly, a small team of developers can reach millions of players without the need for publishers, distributors, or retail stores. The first mobile gaming hits emerge quickly, and they're unlike anything the industry has seen before. Angry Birds, released in 2009, reduces gaming to its purest essence: aim, shoot, watch, physics unfold. The gameplay is simple enough for a toddler to understand, yet sophisticated enough to engage adults for hours. But Angry Birds succeeds for reasons beyond its gameplay. The characters have personality. The birds are determined and heroic. The pigs are mischievous and greedy. The physics feels satisfying and realistic. Most importantly, the game is designed for the way people actually use their phones, in short bursts, during quiet moments throughout the day. This represents a fundamental shift in gaming philosophy. Traditional games demanded dedicated time and attention. You sat down at a computer or in front of a television and committed to playing for extended periods. Mobile games, by contrast, fit into the spaces between other activities. They turn waiting in line, riding the bus, or taking a coffee break into opportunities for play. The social aspects of mobile gaming evolve in fascinating ways. Games like Words with Friends allow people to play together asynchronously. You make your move, then your friend responds hours or days later. This creates a gentle, ongoing connection that doesn't require simultaneous availability. Other games embrace the freemium model. They're free to download and play, but offer optional purchases for players who want to enhance their experience or progress more quickly. This democratizes gaming even further, allowing anyone to try games without financial commitment, while still supporting developers who create experiences people love. As smartphones become more powerful and ubiquitous, mobile games grow more sophisticated. Monument Valley creates impossible architectural puzzles that feel like interactive art. Altos Odyssey combines simple gameplay with breathtaking visuals and meditative music. These games prove that mobile gaming can be just as emotionally engaging and artistically meaningful as any other form of interactive entertainment. The impact extends far beyond entertainment. Educational games help children learn mathematics, languages, and problem-solving skills. Fitness games encourage physical activity and healthy habits. Meditation games provide guided relaxation and stress relief. Gaming becomes integrated into daily life in ways that enhance well-being and personal growth. Perhaps most remarkably, mobile gaming brings interactive entertainment to parts of the world that never had access to traditional gaming platforms. In developing countries where computers and gaming consoles are expensive luxuries, smartphones provide an affordable entry point into digital play. Gaming becomes truly global, crossing cultural and economic boundaries. As we look toward the future, new technologies promise to transform gaming once again. Virtual reality creates immersive experiences that make players feel physically present in digital worlds. Augmented reality overlays game elements onto the real world, turning everyday spaces into playgrounds. Cloud gaming allows any device to access the most sophisticated games, regardless of its processing power. Artificial intelligence is beginning to create game experiences that adapt to individual players, generating personalized content and challenges. Machine learning algorithms study how people play and create new levels, characters, and stories tailored to their preferences and skill levels. But perhaps the most exciting development is gaming's growing recognition as a legitimate art form and cultural medium. Museums exhibit games alongside paintings and sculptures. Universities offer degrees in game design and interactive media. Scholars study games as literature, as social phenomena, as expressions of human creativity and imagination. The simple joy that William Higginbotham created with Tennis for Two has evolved into something far grander than he could have imagined. Games have become a universal language of play, creativity, and connection. They bring people together across distances and differences. They provide spaces for exploration, experimentation, and self-expression. In our increasingly digital world, games offer something uniquely valuable. They remind us that technology at its best serves human needs for play, story, challenge, and community. They show us that the same tools that can divide us can also unite us, that the same screens that can isolate us can also connect us. As you drift toward sleep tonight, perhaps you'll think about the games that have touched your life, the puzzle that helped you relax after a stressful day, the adventure that transported you to another world, the multiplayer experience that connected you with friends or strangers who who became friends. These digital experiences, born from military research and nurtured by human creativity, have become one of our most powerful forms of art and communication. They carry forward the same spirit of play and wonder that has driven human innovation throughout history. The story of video games is still being written. In the quiet moments when someone discovers a new favorite game, in the collaborative efforts of development teams creating tomorrow's experiences, in the gentle glow of screens around the world where people are playing, learning, connecting, and dreaming together. As our gentle journey through the secret history of video games draws to a peaceful close, take a moment to appreciate the remarkable transformation we've witnessed together. We began in the sterile corridors of Cold War laboratories, where scientists and engineers were focused on the serious business of national defense. We watched as William Higginbotham's simple desire to create something engaging for visitors led to the first interactive electronic game. We saw how military technologies designed for tracking aircraft and guiding missiles evolved into tools for creativity and play. From those humble beginnings, a bouncing dot on an oscilloscope screen, we've traced the evolution of an entire art form. We've seen how Ralph Baer's vision brought interactive entertainment into living rooms, how Nolan Bushnell's quarters-driven philosophy created the arcade industry, how Shigeru Miyamoto's storytelling genius gave digital characters heart and soul. We've witnessed the golden age of arcades, where communities gathered around glowing screens to share challenges and celebrate achievements. We've explored the revolution of three-dimensional graphics, which transformed flat game boards into immersive virtual worlds. We've followed the mobile gaming revolution that put interactive entertainment in everyone's pocket and made play a part of daily life. Throughout this journey, we've seen a consistent theme: the human desire to play, to explore, to connect with others through shared experiences. The technologies have evolved dramatically, from analog computers to quantum processors, from black and white oscilloscopes to photorealistic virtual reality. But the fundamental appeal remains the same. Games offer us spaces to be creative, to face challenges, to tell stories, and to connect with others. The games that now help millions of people relax and unwind carry within them the DNA of those early military simulations. The casual mobile games that provide gentle entertainment during quiet moments are descendants of the complex systems designed to track enemy aircraft. The social gaming experiences that connect friends across continents evolved from the networking technologies created for defense communications. This transformation from tools of conflict to instruments of joy represents something beautiful about human nature. We have a remarkable ability to take the most serious technologies and find ways to use them for play, creativity, and connection. We transform weapons into toys, surveillance systems into entertainment platforms, military networks into social spaces. As you settle into sleep tonight, perhaps you'll dream of the pixels that learned to dance, the algorithms that discovered how to tell stories, the networks that chose to carry laughter instead of warnings. In your dreams, you might visit the virtual worlds that exist only in the imagination of their creators and the experiences of their players. The story of video games is ultimately a story about human creativity triumphing over human conflict. It's about curiosity overcoming fear, play defeating seriousness, connection transcending division. It reminds us that our most powerful technologies are not the ones that divide us, but the ones that bring us together in shared wonder and joy. Sleep peacefully, knowing that somewhere in the world, people are discovering new digital worlds, solving puzzles that challenge their minds, and forming friendships through shared virtual adventures. The gentle revolution that began with a physicist's desire to create something engaging for visitors continues to unfold, bringing play and wonder to every corner of our connected world. Sweet dreams, and may your rest be filled with the quiet satisfaction of knowing that even our most serious endeavors can bloom into sources of joy, creativity, and human connection.